All right, welcome to the daily market recap for Monday, July 28th. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the action today from the indexes, liquid leaders, industry ETFs, then end the video with some long and short setups, just like we do every daily recap. Jumping into it, QQQ finished the day up 0.3%. Very calm day, slight gap up. We had a larger gap up overnight and didn't really get going. But overall, still up 0.3%, still above the 5-day moving average and a new closing high. Just expected a little bit more power today with the news of the trade agreement either being done or being worked on with the EU. S&P 500 finished the day basically flat, gapped up a little bit, had a little volatility, very low volume overall. There's a lot of big earnings coming up that we'll touch on in a second here that it makes sense that the S&P 500 kind of had a quiet day. The growth stocks of the Russell 2000, that's IWO. This is something that really kind of shows how difficult the market has been the last like week and a half. Right when things look like they're going to roll over, they find support and rally. Right when you think you're going to break out of a range and continue to trend higher, you pull back. And that's what it's been like trading growth stocks for the last week and a half. I haven't made much progress, and it's been pretty frustrating. We have a support gap below the 10-day moving average that continues to hold, and we have a resistance gap right at previous rally highs that has shown. Today we gapped up into that area, but closed below at the 5-day moving average, down 0.06, so basically flat on the day. But this gives us a really clean map to work with. If we close below the support gap, close below the 20-day moving average, chances are that we need a longer break to actually consolidate after this big run up. If we rally through the resistance gap and close above, chances are we have another leg up before the true consolidation. ARKK, similar action, also has that resistance gap down. I'm surprised this finished flat given Tesla's strength today, but it is what it is. Closed under the resistance gap, above the 5-day moving average, and we just have some nice consolidation after the highs got reversed on the 21st. So the 10-day moving average support gap area is the spot that I'll be watching on the downside. And then if we can close above the resistance gap, chances are we have another leg higher before any consolidation. IBIT, this is using we're using IBIT to track Bitcoin. Bounce off the 20-day EMA. I'm not really looking at the moving averages, so I shouldn't really talk about that. But overall, we had a lower low in the structure, bounce back into the consolidation area. Now, is this a shakeout and we can consolidate for like a higher low and then push out of this? Or was this a lower low? Now we're putting in another lower high and then we lose the previous low. So watching that low as kind of my line in the sand for Bitcoin. Next, we take a look at the liquid leaders. NVIDIA and semiconductors as a whole, this was the leading group today. NVIDIA with another gap up, open on the low, close right near the high, up 1.8%. Now up over 100% after the bear market lows, or whatever you want to call that sell-off lows. Great action overall. And when NVIDIA, the king of the market, is in an uptrend, chances are the market's going to be in an uptrend as well. Robinhood, great action today. I've been saying I think this is kind of the liquid leader of this market cycle. It is a little bit very much smaller than Nvidia, but trades with a little bit more strength overall. So Robinhood, higher highs, higher lows, bounced at the 5-day moving average. We do have earnings coming up this week. Overall, I think that shakeout last week, I think that was Wednesday on the 22nd, was really the last spot to kind of get positioned. Roblox, good action today. We closed above a gap down zone or resistance gap, so that's always a positive. Closed back over the 5-day moving average. Now we're starting to see volatility tighten up after we saw price accelerate, volatility come in. Now we're getting that contraction. Do we break to the upside, continue this uptrend? Do we break to the downside, have our first test of the 20-day? We'll see what tomorrow brings. GEV, great action overall, continues to hold over the HVC from earnings, the high volume close there. A pullback into the 5-day moving average, into the HVC, into the gap zone could be a good spot to manage risk against. But it is pretty extended in this move. So I would play that for kind of like a shorter term swing. Royal Caribbean, very tight action between the 5 and the 10-day moving average, still holds the support gap there. FUTU, one of the leaders in China, reversed at the resistance gap and closed at the 5-day moving average. Very light volume. Still, to me, not doing anything wrong. I haven't touched my position on this. Just continue to hold that. SMR, really good action off the 5-day moving average. Closed slightly lower, down 1.3% on lighter volume. And whenever you have a low volume red candle close above the 5-day moving average, to me, a gap up can signal another ignite bar. So I'm watching this for a little gap up, opening range break to play as a performance booster versus the low today. Coinbase, more weakness, down 3.2%. First pullback to the 20-day EMA since new highs. Usually a good risk reward spot, but Coinbase also has earnings coming up. So I don't like to build positions right before earnings. Then Rocket Lab down 4.8%, 4.9%, revisits that support gap that we bounced at last week. And we've held there again. Do we follow through to the 20-day moving average, or do we gap up and start this uptrend again? Two spots to watch. Before we jump into industry ETFs, just want to go over to Earnings Whisper. Easy way to see the earnings coming up. So UNH, United Healthcare, SoFi reports tomorrow morning, PayPal, Spotify. Those are the ones that I'm most interested in. Then after the close tomorrow, we have Starbucks, DKNG. Not a ton that I'm interested in after the close. Really, before the market opens, SoFi is going to be kind of my main focus. SoFi and Spotify. All right, let's jump to the industry ETFs. Just go over a couple here. Semiconductors, great action. We gapped up, opened on the low, closed on the high, right near closing highs and previous highs here. Across the space was the leader on my overall watch list. Great action out of this group. XOP and XLE, energy ETF and oil and gas. Actually, good action, gapped up and closed through the 200-day moving average. We do have this consolidation that got supported at the 50-day, so maybe this is a little pennant that we can break to the upside from. XLE, kind of similar action, tested the 50-day, close above the 200-day today. ITB still showing some relative strength, holding the 5-day moving average with a little bit more volatility as it's trying to carve out a base low here. Solar TAN down another 1% coming into the support gap, closed right at the 10-day moving average. Really would want to see this gap zone in the 20-day EMA hold on any pullback. Otherwise, this trend might just be like a short covering squeeze. I don't think it is. I think this is a start of a new uptrend, but we'll watch that 20-day moving average. And then XBI, I really thought that we were going to get going from this potential higher low, and we gapped up slightly, took out the high, and then reversed, closed under the 5, the 10, and tested the 20-day moving average. So once we do kind of get over the 200-day moving average, this does have the ability to make like quick moves in a short amount of time, but obviously not there quite yet. And then NLR, nuclear theme, a little bit of weakness today, gap down, closed at the 5-day, tested just above the 10-day, and then bounced there, but a lot of volume today. So we'll see if we can hold that 10-day moving average on any pullback. Next, we'll go to the long setups. And honestly, both on the long side and the short side, I didn't find many like A plus setups that I'm super excited about. So more so just watching the action tomorrow and kind of responding to it versus having like one or two setups that I'm super pumped for. MP is MP and RGTI are probably my two favorites. MP, I already have a position in this on the shakeout of the 5-day. Added to it a little bit through that day's high and through all-time high. I'll add like a final piece and try to um, ride it for a longer move. This is a high type flag setting up, and I see this wedging action, but if you study other high type flags, you tend to see this wedging action into highs and then just a ignite bar that you can have like an 8 to 10% move. So I've missed out on enough of these high type flags because of wedging action that I don't want to miss out on this one. Got my core position, just want to finish it off with a break over highs, but watching for an ignite bar there. AS, this has been on and off the watch list for a while. Continues to kind of just base out after this earnings gap up. We had an ugly close under the 20-day, or sorry, under the 50-day moving average and under the HVC. And typically, when you get those ugly closes, it's a do or die kind of moment for the stock. And instead of dying, the stock gapped up, reclaimed the 50, reclaimed the HVC, closed at the 5-day. And then today, another gap up, wedge pop through the 10 and the 20-day EMAs. So now we'll just watch for a pullback into that gap zone to play versus the HVC. RBRK, good action today, took out the slight resistance gap, and now we don't have any gap downs before that 50-day moving average. I would love one more like tight trading day to form up a pivot at that 20-day, but just going through tomorrow's high could be viable versus today's low, or today through today's high versus today's low is the stop. DAVE, this kind of reminds me of the SEZL trade stock that's made a massive move and then had a pretty sharp pullback from 283 down to 183. So about a 33% pullback, rough math there. Rallied up into the 50-day and got rejected, but then put in a higher low, gapped up, and now we're seeing really tight price action just below that 50-day that's curling over. So simple setup for me. This is my higher low 50 pop setup. Through today's high is the entry. Stop is today's low, that 5-day moving average. We'll see if we can get a pop through that 20 and 50-day moving average to reignite the uptrend. MDP, huge move on earnings last week of 54%. Gave some back the next day, down 8%, but really just consolidating above the 5-day moving average. We've got two support gaps here, tight action today. This is another one where if we got like one more tight day, that would improve the setup overall, or even a pullback to the 5-day and the support gap low as a buy point. But through today's high, it is buyable. I don't know if I'll take it. I'll probably watch this one or watch the support gap undercut as a potential entry. Next, we have RGTI. Still have a position in this. I tried to add a little bit today on the gap up and then take out of yesterday's or Friday's high, and immediately had to take that piece off because we reversed. Eventually, we did close positive. We undercut yesterday or Friday's low and the 10-day moving average, closed between the 5 and the 10-day. Now we're looking for just another gap up, opening range break to buy versus today's low, and then we can manage our risk there. But this is a high quality base after a monster move up in a theme that's at kind of a do or die spot. We talked about this on Saturday's video. I think quantum as a whole is kind of in a do or die spot. And that's the place that you can size up and be wrong right away, be wrong for a very small amount, or size up and you're right. And now you can have multiples of your risk on the trade. We'll just jump to the other quantum name, IONQ. Little shakeout to the 50-day, not quite too, like, didn't quite hit the 50-day moving average. Did close red on the day, looking for a gap up and then a takeout of today's high and this kind of pivot at 44.50 as a potential entry point on that one. SEDG, another very low volume pullback day that undercut the support gap later in the day. Typically, when I'm buying these undercut and reclaims of the support gaps, it's in the first 90 minutes are the best setups. So we'll just look for another undercut and reclaim of that support gap low in the first 90 minutes of tomorrow's session as a potential entry versus that 20-day moving average. And like I said earlier, TAN, the solar ETF, is getting to kind of like a do or die spot for the uptrend. So this is a name that I would take a little bit of risk on and play versus that 20-day. GDS, we've talked about, I didn't go over KWeb. KWeb, the China Internet ETF, a little bit weaker today, back to the 10-day moving average. But overall, a lot of the stocks in China are actually setting up well. GDS is one of them. We shook out the 10-day moving average and have 4 tight trading days forming this pivot at 37.15. So through those highs is buyable. The 10-day moving average and the lows of the last 4 days would be my stop on GDS. Then finally, COUR. This one gapped up, rallied into the resistance gap, sold off second half of the day, and then bounced a little bit to close over the HVC. Because of um, because we had an earnings gap up on massive volume out of this stage one base, even with today's kind of funky, ugly action, still closed positive on the day, up 1%. This is another one that I would be watching for a retest of the HVC and then the stop at yesterday's low as kind of like an earnings delayed play. Then on the short side, we have AFRM again. I think this is probably a lower quality short setup, but if it does work, you have really defined risk, especially with today's higher high and higher low. We're above all the key moving averages. So we're trying to kind of time this reversal. We've had a couple of distribution bars in here, here, and here. Now a lower volume rally up, potentially into a lower high, or you could draw a downtrend line and say through today's high is Bible. I would argue that that is true. But we're looking for a break under today's low as the entry. Stop would be today's high. And then you have your stop overall key moving averages to try to play this kind of turnaround in the trend. DXYZ, this has been on the short watch list since I've been making these videos, continues to just trend down, trade tight, and hopefully now another leg lower. 2 days uppercutting and failing at the resistance gap. Then we closed the low today. Now we're looking for follow through today's low as an add-on to the short there. ACHR, this was perfect. Short today, uppercut and fail at the resistance gap at the 5 and the 10-day moving averages. That was your entry. Then we closed under the 50-day, under Friday's low. Now through today's low is, I would say, an add-on spot. I wouldn't put like a brand new position on through today's low. But if you want to take like a smaller position and then manage it against like the 20-day moving average, that would be fine. CEP. Overall, big move from 10 up to 50, lower high, really fell apart from 46 down to 25. Big rally, but still another lower high. And now we're trading tight under the 5-day moving average, under the 10-day, uppercut and fail the resistance gap. And now we're just looking for follow through to the downside as the entry. Stop would be today's high. QMCO, this is like a fake quantum name that had the run up in December, then never participated with the rest of the quantum stocks. Yeah, it's not. I know it says Quantum Corporation. I don't think it's like a quantum company. Today, tons of weakness. Nearly closed out this support, the last support gap before like a huge space down. So now we're really looking for this to accelerate down, looking for an entry through today's low, and then try to play it for a waterfall move. Then SLDP, I did take this short today, uppercut and failed Friday's high, then took out the 5-day moving average and took out Friday's close or Friday's low, excuse me. A name that's had a big run from 70 cents up to $4, and now we're just trying to play a move at least to the 20-day EMA. That would be the first spot I would be watching. And then kind of like this little pivot retest at 270, probably line up with the 50-day moving average shortly. So overall, not a ton of setups that I'm like super pumped about. I think the market's kind of in a weird spot. We have plenty of earnings to watch. So I'm just taking it day by day, not trying to force the issue when there's no like A plus setups out there, and just the stuff that I'm in, continue to ride them higher as long as they respect key moving averages and respect my stop loss. And then try to balance off some long and short setups to see where the trend's going to go next. All right. Hope you guys enjoy the video and enjoy the rest of your night. Take care.